Oh, hey, Pa! This is the place to do it. All aboard the Backroads Express. John Bartell here. You know, railroads built California. And as a travel reporter and a rail fan, I visited many locomotive hotspots throughout the state, all the way from the High Sierra down to the Mojave Desert. And now I want to take you along for the ride. First stop, we're heading to the Feather River Canyon, where I got the chance to ride the legendary Big Boy steam train. Just 25 miles from the Nevada border in the railroad town of Portola, California, eager photographers gather at the Western Pacific Railroad Museum to snap a picture of a locomotive never before seen in this area. This is the Big Boy 4014, and it's the largest steam locomotive in the world.
To be able to see the largest steam train in the world, especially the one that still works, it's out of this world.
The Big Boy is the holy grail of locomotives in the train spotting community, and for the first time, it's entered into California on a whistle-stop tour from Portola to Roseville.
So Big Boy's operated from Ogden, Utah, effectively to North Platte, Nebraska. Very small network. So we're making history here when we're traveling with the Big Boy, because Big Boy's never traveled out in this part of the country.
Ed Dickinson is with Union Pacific's Heritage Operations, and he's the one operating this beast.
Well, we're talking 545,000 pounds just on the drivers. The locomotive is 610 tons, which weighs as much as 3 of those.
A total of just 25 Big Boys were built between 1941 and 1944. All of them, though, were retired just a few years later in 1959 when Union Pacific moved to the more efficient diesel locomotives. Now, most Big Boys were either scrapped or donated to museums, but in 2019, Ed and his team brought the 4014 back to life.
2.5 years it took us to completely disassemble this locomotive and build it back up again.
As the Big Boy leaves Portola, I was offered a ride through a portion of the Feather River Canyon, one of California's most scenic and historic railroad routes. These are just one-of-a-kind views that you get in here. Now, you may remember my episode on the 7 wonders of the Feather River Canyon. Yeehaw! And you'll recognize this, the Callao Bridge. This 105-foot-long steel trestle stands more than 170 feet over Willow Creek. From inside the Big Boy, it feels like you're flying. And from ground level, spectators get one heck of a view. So as these guys roll through town, they have a certain celebrity status with all the rail fans. 19 miles northwest of the Callao Bridge is one of the Feather River Canyon's most unique engineering innovations, the Williams Loop. In order to get over the steep hill and keep the track at a 1% grade, builders looped a mile of track over itself, much like a spiral staircase. This is also where I got off the Big Boy to join the rail fans on the ground, because I wanted to see the next stop. The Ketty Y is the only railroad Y in the world with 2 tracks merging over a canyon and then entering a tunnel. The trestle is located high above Spanish Creek, and below the Ketty Resort is where you get one of the best views of the bridge. What do you guys think?
Big, so far. Steaming, hot, great. Can't complain.
It takes a really dedicated person to be a train enthusiast to capture that perfect picture. As the 135-foot-long locomotive heads out of the Feather River Canyon, more and more train spotters start jumping on Highway 70 to see the Big Boy cross the Tobin Bridges, a railroad and vehicle bridge that crosses over each other. Locals say it's good luck to have a train pass over your car. Was it worth the wait?
Oh, heck yes. I'm a fireman on the Virginia Truckee Railroad, and this thing is more impressive than anything I've ever worked on. Sorry, engines.
When the train reached Oroville, temperatures outside were 115 degrees, but that didn't stop a massive crowd from forming. Inside the locomotive, though, next to the boiler, the crews can experience even hotter temperatures.
Yesterday it was 135 degrees in this cab.
Choo choo!
Waiting at the big boy's final destination in Roseville were thousands of onlookers. The crowd spilled across Vernon Square.
Who would have thought this many people come for a train? It's amazing.
We spend a lot of time at the Railroad Museum.
We're train fanatics.
Yeah.
Well, it's unclear if or when the big boy will return to California, but if you want to see the locomotives on the Feather River Canyon now, there's nothing stopping you from meeting up with a fellow rail fan and seeing the historic railroad yourself. Next stop, we leave the canyon behind and climb into the High Sierra to ride one of the world's rarest trains, an unforgettable journey through the towering sugar pines near Yosemite. Just outside the gates of Yosemite National Park, a smoke-billowing beast makes daily trips through the sugar pine forest in the town of Fish Canyon. The beast is known as Engine Number 10, a steam-powered Shay locomotive.
All aboard!
And for the price of a ticket, you can ride the Smoky Beast at Yosemite Mountain Sugar Pine Railroad.
This engine specifically was built in 1928. She is 95 years old.
Conductor Karen Bradshaw doesn't like to brag, but she's one of the few people in the world still conducting the very rare Shay locomotive.
I know that there are only about 20 to 30 Shay locomotives left in the world.
What sets the Shay apart from other locomotives are the vertical pistons and the very noticeable gears connecting to the wheels.
Shays are virtually 12-wheel drive.
That extra traction allows the Shay to climb steep hills and weave through turns. Unfortunately, though, it also makes the locomotive slow.
So they were in the lumber business, not the railroad business. So they weren't made to go fast, about 15 miles an hour.
The powerful and hot Shays were necessary for the logging operations in this area. Much like the mighty redwood or the girthy sequoia, the old-growth sugar pines in this area were massive. From 1899 to 1931, the Madera Sugar Pine Company used the Shay engines to transport trees to the mill, about 1.5 billion board feet worth.
If we had it stacked up next to us, that rough cut lumber, we would be able to lay it around the Earth's equator and go around the world 11 times.
The Great Depression and diminishing lumber supplies ultimately put an end to logging in this area. Today, tourists can enjoy the regrowth of the once clear-cut forest, and they're welcome to bring along their furry friends.
We are pet-friendly, dogs ride for free.
And after your excursion, be sure and stop at the Logging Museum. You can learn what a steam donkey is, and you can look at a section of the 54-mile-long flume that also transported lumber to the mill. Big locomotives get a lot of attention, but the real workhorses of the railroad are the maintenance cars known as speeders. These behind-the-scene machines keep the tracks in top shape, and in Humboldt County, they take center stage at the Timber Heritage Museum in Eureka. Following the devastating earthquake of 1906, a massive amount of lumber was needed to rebuild San Francisco. And much of that lumber was transported by railroad from the redwood forests in Humboldt County. Felling these massive redwoods and loading them onto trains required tough lumberjacks. The job was not just dangerous, but deadly, and there was no ambulances. There were, however, railroad speeder cars.
Extreme physical labor, extreme danger, and as I mentioned, they would have these crew cars on hand if they had to run somebody back to camp.
From spring to fall, the Timber Heritage Association offers speeder car rides down different sections of Humboldt County's old logging tracks. This particular ride was along Eureka Slough.
At one time, there were 53 independent different railroads.
Tour guide Thaddeus Wu says speeder cars were like the utility vehicles of the tracks. Like their name suggests, speeder cars were not only fast-moving, but fast-acting because they generally ran on gas-powered engines instead of steam.
Steam locomotive, we're talking 4 or 5 hours to come up to steam to be able to get out on the track. Whereas with these gas-powered cars, they could just fire them up and get out there.
Well, the museum has a whole line of different speeder cars they're restoring, and as primitive and dangerous as they look, speeder cars were much less labor-intensive than hand cars, which were human-powered and very impractical for long-haul distances.
It could be 20 miles, it could be 100. The railroads here were pretty long, and they had a lot of mountainous terrain.
Today, the Timber Heritage speeder cars are limited to the remaining historic tracks, which are only a few miles long but very scenic. Passengers get a good look at Humboldt Bay, and drivers along Highway 101 get a unique look at the speeder cars.
We get out there, we're going to get a lot of honks and a lot of waves.
They're not as big or powerful as a locomotive, but there's something special about cruising along in an open-air speeder car. No need to stoke the steam engine boilers at this next stop, but you will need some strong legs. In Fort Bragg, passengers hop on the railbikes and pedal along the iconic Skunk Train tracks, taking up breathtaking views of the redwood forest. Hiding below a towering redwood forest on the Mendocino coastline is a bike ride like no other.
Well, we've had a lot of rain, so this looks almost like a postcard for Ireland out here.
This is the historic Western Railroad track in Fort Bragg. And this is a railbike.
So they're mostly off-the-shelf parts. The wheels are obviously very specialized.
Our cycle conductor on this ride is Rick Hinman.
I believe the actual position would be railbike guide.
The pedal-powered locomotive rides on what's known as the historic Skunk Train track.
It's a former logging train. It began passenger operation in the early 1900s.
It's called the Skunk Train because of the stinky exhaust that comes out of the locomotive. But you won't find any pollution on the rail bikes.
Good news is if you have kind of a lazy passenger, you got this thing, a nice little electric powered throttle.
All the rail bikes are electric powered, allowing you to silently cruise through the redwood forest and take in the scenery.
Really electric green, and you can see all these horsetail ferns growing on the side. And
below this canopy of green is the Noyo River estuary, a pristine redwood forest that survived centuries of destruction brought on by man. The ride continues over 2 different trestle bridges and eventually leads you to Glen Blair Junction, where the track ends abruptly at this tunnel.
And this railroad was finished in 1911. It ran 40 miles, and this train line ended in Willits. And what's behind me is tunnel number 1, which was taken out, as you can sort of see, by a huge landslide.
The rail bike ride is just a 7-mile round trip, and thankfully, Rick turns those rail bikes around for you. So that way on the way back, you have a second chance to take a picture if you missed anything. You're watching Bartell's Backroads. We're taking a look at some of my favorite railroad-themed locations across California. Up next, we're gonna do a little time traveling in Hollywood's most famous locomotive, all aboard Railtown's Movie Queen in Jackson. Contrary to common belief, you won't find Movie Queen in Hollywood. Her home is here at the 1897 Railtown State Historic Park in Jamestown.
If you've seen an old Western, it's probably that locomotive that you're seeing.
Movie Queen is her stage name, but engine number 3 is what park staff like Jackie Olivaria know her as. The 10-wheeled Rogers locomotive was built in 1891, and had it not been for Hollywood, this steamer would have been destined for the scrapyard. It's not until Movie Queen's boilers are stoked that her familiar features start to show. Movie buffs may recognize her from this film, Back to the Future 3. This train was in Back to the Future, huh?
Yes, it was.
So, are we going to be able to get this thing up to 88 miles per hour?
Not with me on it.
Despite what Doc and Marty were able to accomplish in the movie, engine number 3 can't accelerate anywhere near time travel speed.
We were probably only doing about 10 miles an hour.
Yes, that's movie magic for you. California's rugged mountain ranges pose challenges for locomotives which can't climb steep hills very easily. To overcome this, railroad engineers got creative, and one brilliant solution was the Tehachapi Loop, an engineering marvel that connected San Francisco to Los Angeles. Tehachapi Pass, a massive granite wall that stands between San Francisco and Los Angeles. Prior to 1876, no locomotive could summit these steep, arid mountains. That is, until a workaround was built. This is the Tehachapi Loop, one of the most important engineering marvels in railroad history.
All right, you gotta take a look here. This is the front of the train. Down here at the bottom of the loop, still going. Some of these trains can be almost a mile long.
It may look like a train roller coaster from the sky, but according to historian Doug Pickard, it's actually more of a ladder.
So instead of going straight up a mountain,
couldn't do it.
Gotta take a slow winding.
Just like driving on a mountain road, you do switchbacks.
Doug is the founder of Friends of the Tehachapi Depot, a railroad museum which holds a variety of railroad relics.
How many signals are we talking in this area?
What is there, 12 or 15 here we've got, and they're from different parts of the country.
The depot is also the gateway to the Tehachapi Loop, which is one of California's most trafficked railroad mountain passes.
The only two places to get east out of California is Donner Pass and Tehachapi.
In 1869, the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad linked Sacramento to the East Coast, but at the time, trains were limited on how steep a hill grade they could climb.
2.2%, which means for every 100 feet of track, he could go up 2.2 feet, like 26 inches.
On the Sierra through Donner Pass, engineers had plenty of routes to slowly ramp the track up the mountain 2 feet at a time, but at Tehachapi Pass, it was different.
What is the height difference from the bottom of the loop to the top of the loop here?
76 feet, and it was just way too steep from here up to here.
It was engineer William Hood who came up with the loop idea, and with the help of about 3,000 Chinese laborers, they laid the track in record time.
No, from the loop up to Tehachapi, down to Mojave, down to Lancaster, Palmdale, and up through Soledad Canyon in 2 months.
Thanks to the loop, Los Angeles would grow and prosper because people and cargo from the East Coast could travel back and forth from Northern California to Southern California, and eventually to New Orleans.
And still there. Every train that goes by here goes through there. Today.
The loop has remained relatively unchanged for more than 100 years, and thanks to efforts by Friends of the Tehachapi Depot, this loop overlook was built for train enthusiasts of all kinds to enjoy.
Let me tell you, coming up here 3-4 times a week, I've met people from all across the country.
Hey, John Bartell here. We're checking out some of my favorite railroad destinations across California. Up next, we're heading to the Western Pacific Railroad Museum, where it's one of the few museums you can actually operate a real locomotive. This is where I got the chance to ride a rare rotary snowplow.
The year was 1952 and a snowstorm of the century hits Donner Pass. That's when a train bound for San Francisco gets stuck in the snow. 222 passengers were on board, and the only way to get to those passengers was with a rotary snowplow, like this. This is the Southern Pacific 208 rotary snowplow, one of the 2 snowplows that rescued the 222 passengers in 1952.
So I can remember them ever since remembering.
This locomotive is a cherished antique at the Western Pacific Railroad Museum in Portola, and it's been Charlie Spike's childhood dream to operate it.
It is an absolute thrill to be able to operate this machine that I've known forever.
As a kid, Charlie grew up watching the rotary plow moving snow. The old girl used to run on steam, but in the 1970s it was converted to diesel electric.
A lot more snow than I thought was out here.
It takes a small army to operate the rotary snowplow, and the museum only brings it out when they need to remove a lot of snow off the tracks.
It would go, what, Steve, 150 feet or more? Yeah, easily.
Charlie says the massive rotary blades are powered by a 1,500 horsepower, 600 volt electric engine that literally devours snow. So operating the plow is a specialized job under normal conditions. Yeehaw! But luckily, Charlie was nice enough to let me take the controls. You do not want to be standing under this thing.
No.
No. Snow in the Sierra is some of the hardest in the nation. Some even call it Sierra cement. And without the rotary snowplow, Donner Summit would be impassable. And those passengers in 1952 would probably die. To cut down on noise and pollution, electric trains were the preferred option for moving people around in urban areas. The Bay Area's streetcar history lives on at the Western Railroad Museum in Suisun City. High above the grasslands in Suisun City, wind farms quietly generate electricity that powers neighboring cities. But long before those wind farms, electricity quietly powered vehicles across the grasslands.
With the middle section of track where we are on the track, that's 1900s transportation.
All aboard the Western Railway Museum, home to Northern California's largest collection of historic electric streetcars.
There's like 20, 30 streetcars in this one photo alone, all lined up going down Market Street.
In the early 1900s, electric streetcars were the cleanest, quietest, and most efficient way to move people in big cities, and San Francisco was littered with them.
No one wanted coal steam trains running down the middle of the city streets.
As San Francisco grew, so did the streetcar system, and one of the major developers was Francis Smith, who built a streetcar line out to Oakland and the East Bay.
Train was just to sell land at that time.
Following the San Francisco earthquake of 1906, many people started moving to Oakland, and eventually the railway expanded and became the East Bay Key Line, linking the two cities.
The East Bay would not be the East Bay it is today without the streetcar system.
By the 19-teens, electric railways were popping up everywhere and eventually took passengers as far as Sacramento and Chico on a high-speed railway. How fast are we talking from San Francisco to Sacramento?
60 miles an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, with dining service and public car service and all.
After World War II, the automobile gained popularity, and before long, streetcars were scrapped and electric railways started closing. Thanks to some forward-thinking electric railroad enthusiasts in the 1940s, a number of historic streetcars were saved and then restored.
It is all original woodwork. The stained glass is original. It's all designed just to be the best of the best.
From the carpets to the seats, modern-day riders could get a glimpse of what streetcar travel was once like. You know, the creaks in the rocking, it kind of adds to the experience. It does. The hour-long 11-mile round-trip ride takes you along a portion of the old Sacramento Northern Line, which gives you a beautiful view of the wildflowers in the spring. Just make sure you use the bathroom before you go. How did the plumbing work in the restroom here?
There was no water. You can look down and see the tracks below you.
So everything just...
It was just a pipe with a seat on top.
The Western Railway Museum continues to collect and preserve electric streetcars from the distant past and some from recent history.
We have to preserve what is today, just like they preserved what was today back then.
A handcar is an old-fashioned, human-powered maintenance vehicle used on railroads in the 1800s. You rarely see them unless they're in museums, but every year the town of Fulsome shuts down the railroad to race these human-powered handcars. The motto for many competitors is pump until you puke. Every year, this seemingly ordinary stretch of railroad tracks in Fulsome become the site of a fierce race.
Pusher ready?
Ready.
Ready on the car?
Ready.
Set. Go!
This fierce race is known as the Fulsome Handcar Derby, and only those with strong arms and a strong stomach can survive. How do I win this race?
Pump till you puke.
If you don't know what a handcar is, Derby volunteer and racer Dan Basinski explains it like this.
They used to use this back in the early railroad days to either get the workers out to the tracks, workers and equipment, or just to inspect the tracks.
You may recognize handcars in old westerns or Buster Keaton movies. They're simple, human-powered maintenance vehicles that ride on tracks. Handcars weren't built for speed, but that hasn't stopped railroad enthusiasts from racing them.
Never been clocked on radar, but I would guess it's close to 30 miles an hour.
It's unclear when or where the first official handcar derby took place, but Gary Putman has been organizing handcar races all over the nation for over 40 years.
But I've done handcar races from Stone Mountain, Georgia, clear to Alaska. Probably about 150 handcar races I've put on.
Rules are pretty simple. It's a timed race. A team of 5 people see how fast they can move their handcar down the tracks. Only 4 people pump the handcar. The job of the 5th teammate is to get the handcar moving by pushing it.
Because this weighs over 800 pounds, so it's not easy to just get going from a dead start.
Competitors are a mix of return racers and random people off the street. In total, the teams pump and push down a 750-foot long stretch of railroad track, and much like a real locomotive, handcars don't stop on a dime.
Is there brakes on this thing?
Yes.
Oh, kind of.
It's just a wooden shoe that rubs on the wheel.
If for some reason there is a runaway handcar, there is a safety measure.
We have hay bales at the end of the track in case they don't stop. They hit the hay bales.
Classes of 73.
Men, women, young and old, handcar racing is a sport that everyone can participate in.
We are family.
And though it may not be popular enough to make an Olympic sport, Gary has high hopes that someday he'll catch the attention of Hollywood.
And I've always wanted to get Clint Eastwood to direct a movie about handcar racing.
An epic sports movie about handcar racing.
Yeah.
I can see it, yeah.
Well, there's nothing wrong with having big dreams, but until handcar racing hits the silver screen, you'll just have to experience it in person.
Well, thanks for watching Bartell's Backroads Special Railroad Edition. I hope it's inspired you to do a little road trip of your own. I'm John Bartell. Hope to see you on the Backroads.